All over the world, people are stepping away from religion, quietly, steadily, and in large numbers. And it's not because they've had some dramatic revelation or suddenly become rebellious. It's often much simpler. They've started asking questions, and the answers they're getting don't hold up the way they used to. The rise of atheism, or more broadly, non-religion, isn't just happening in isolated pockets. It's happening across continents, cultures, and generations. And it's not about rejecting tradition for the sake of it. It's about examining old ideas with new tools. Tools like science, psychology, critical thinking, and lived experience. What we're witnessing isn't a crisis of belief. It's a transformation in how people think about meaning, truth, and morality. One of the biggest drivers of this shift is education. When people have access to information, they naturally start making comparisons. Ancient religious explanations for natural phenomena don't stand up very well next to modern science. Diseases aren't caused by demons. Thunder isn't the voice of a god. The world wasn't formed in 6 days. These things used to be accepted without question. Now they're understood differently, and that changes everything. Then there's the internet. It's easy to overlook just how much it's changed the landscape of belief. In the past, if you lived in a deeply religious community, it was hard to access alternative views. Now, with a few taps on a screen, anyone can explore arguments, ideas, and perspectives that challenge what they were taught. Doubt is no longer isolated. It's global. People who once felt alone in their questions are discovering they're part of a much bigger conversation. But it's not just about information. It's about transparency. Religious institutions are under far more scrutiny than they used to be. Stories of abuse, corruption, and hypocrisy are coming to light. Not because they're new, but because they're harder to hide. When leaders preach humility but live in luxury or demand obedience while violating the values they claim to uphold, it creates disillusionment. And once people lose trust, it's hard to get it back. That's especially true for younger generations. Studies show that Gen Z is the least religious generation in history. And it's not because they're lazy or nihilistic. It's because they've grown up watching religion used to justify bigotry, suppress questions, and resist progress. They see how faith can be twisted into a weapon, and they're not buying into it. Instead, they're building communities based on shared values, not shared beliefs. There's also the question of relevance. For many, religion no longer offers answers that make sense in today's world. When life expectancy was short and science was limited, supernatural explanations filled in the gaps. But today, when someone loses a child, telling them it's God's plan doesn't bring comfort. It raises more pain. When people face injustice, they're not looking to heaven for rescue. They're looking to each other. Morality, compassion, and purpose don't have to be handed down from above. They can be built from the ground up, from reason, empathy, and a shared sense of humanity. It's not just individuals questioning religion. Entire countries are shifting. Look at Scandinavia. Places like Sweden, Denmark, and Norway consistently rank among the most secular and also among the happiest, healthiest, and safest. This isn't a coincidence. These societies have found ways to provide stability, meaning, and moral structure without relying on religious frameworks. And they're not falling apart. They're thriving. Now, some argue that removing religion leaves a vacuum, that without it, people become lost or immoral. But the evidence doesn't support that. In fact, some of the least religious countries also have the lowest crime rates. That's because morality isn't exclusive to religion. Most people don't avoid murder because a holy book tells them not to. They avoid it because they understand suffering, they value life, and they don't want to harm others. Morality is older than religion and deeper than dogma. Still, breaking away from religion isn't always easy. It often comes with social costs, tension with family, stigma in communities, even legal consequences in some parts of the world. But people are doing it anyway. Quietly at first, then more openly. Because the desire to live authentically is stronger than the fear of being judged. And when enough people take that step, it stops being taboo. It starts becoming normal. One under-discussed factor in the rise of atheism is cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort we feel when we hold two conflicting beliefs. Many religious teachings simply don't align with what people experience in real life. When someone prays for healing but only gets better after medical treatment, they start to wonder what actually made the difference. When someone hears that God loves everyone, but watches their religious leaders exclude and shame certain groups, it creates a conflict. Over time, those conflicts build up. Eventually, something gives. Another overlooked point is the way religion tends to resist change. Institutions that claim to represent eternal truth often struggle to evolve. But society moves forward. Ideas about gender, sexuality, race, and justice continue to grow, and religion often lags behind. For many, that gap becomes too wide to ignore. If your moral compass leads you to support equality, but your religion tells you to condemn it, the contradiction becomes unbearable. So people choose to follow their conscience instead. And then there's the existential piece. For a long time, religion was the main way people coped with death. The promise of an afterlife gave comfort. But now, more people are finding meaning in the finite. The idea that life is short and precious doesn't have to be terrifying. It can be motivating. It encourages us to live fully, love deeply, and leave something behind that matters. You don't need eternity to find value in the present moment. Atheism, in its quiet way, invites people to look at the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. It asks us to face uncertainty with honesty, not with stories. It challenges us to take responsibility instead of outsourcing it to fate or divine will. That can be unsettling, but it can also be freeing, because it means the future isn't written. It's shaped by what we do now. We're also seeing a broader cultural shift towards secular ethics, systems of thought that emphasize human well-being, fairness, and reason. Philosophers like Peter Singer have pushed for a more evidence-based approach to morality. Psychologists like Steven Pinker have shown how global violence has declined as reason and humanism have expanded. These perspectives aren't about tearing religion down. They're about building something better, something grounded in reality and open to revision. Even within religious communities, more people are admitting doubts. They might still go to church, but they're asking different questions. They're more interested in community than in creed, more drawn to social action than theological purity. The line between belief and non-belief is getting blurrier, and in that gray area, there's room for honest reflection. What we're seeing isn't a war between belief and disbelief. It's a realignment, a rethinking of what matters, what's true, and how we should live. And atheism, or more broadly, secular thinking, is becoming a larger part of that conversation. Not as an ideology, but as an approach, a way of engaging with the world that values evidence over authority, questions over certainties, and connection over conformity. In some ways, it's a return to something ancient. Long before organized religion, humans gathered around fires and tried to make sense of the world. They observed the stars, told stories, grieved their dead, and looked for patterns. We still do all of that, but now we do it with better tools, with microscopes and telescopes, data and dialogue. We're still asking the big questions. We're just more comfortable admitting when we don't have all the answers. The rise of atheism isn't about erasing meaning. It's about redefining it. It's about creating a life that's full, even without promises of heaven. A life rooted in what we know, open to what we don't, and shaped by the choices we make every day. That's not a loss. That's growth. And more people around the world are choosing that path. Not out of anger or despair, but out of curiosity, integrity, and hope.